right. So um, today we're tackling something that I think every writer kind of struggles with at some point,
Yeah.
and that's finding a good editor
Oh, yeah.
without having to, spend a fortune.
Absolutely.
You've poured your heart into your book, and
Right.
now it's like, okay, how do I get this thing, really polished up
Mm,
and ready for, the eyes of the world?
for sure.
And it can get expensive.
It can.
So that's why we're going deep with this guide called Finding Affordable Editors Without Losing Quality.
Okay.
And this thing is packed with, I think, really solid advice
Yeah.
on how to find that perfect balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Top-notch editing, but, on a budget that we can all actually afford.
Right, because I think sometimes people think that if you're a new writer, then you need an editor.
Right.
But even a seasoned author,
Mm-hmm.
even if you've been writing for years,
Mm-hmm.
I think getting a fresh pair of eyes on your work is so valuable.
Absolutely. And it's like,
You know what I mean?
yeah, it's like having that friend who's a chef come over and taste your dish
Exactly.
before you serve it to a crowd.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
they can be like, oh, maybe it needs a little more salt,
Hmm.
or, oh, the flavors are perfect.
Exactly. It's that objective perspective that you just can't get when you're so close to your own work.
Totally.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that, like, an editor can help with?
Well, I think beyond just catching typos,
Yeah.
which is what people tend to think of when they think of editors,
Mm-hmm.
they can spot plot holes
Oh, yeah.
that you may have missed. They can make sure your sentences are flowing smoothly.
Right.
They can even give you feedback on your characters. Like, do you need to strengthen your character development
Right.
or your themes?
Yeah.
So they're really looking at the big picture
Yeah.
and giving you feedback to make your story the best it can be.
Wow. So it's really about refining the whole thing.
Yes.
It's not just like,
And not just fixing comments.
yeah, exactly.
It's so much more than that.
Yeah. And this guide also talks about, like, some red flags to watch out for when
Yeah.
you're looking for an editor.
Sure.
What's like the biggest red flag?
Well, one of the biggest ones I would say is unrealistically low rates.
Okay.
Like if an editor is offering to edit your entire book for like $50,
Right.
that's a sign to proceed with caution.
Right.
Because it often means they're either inexperienced or they're not really committed to quality.
Yeah, like you get what you pay for in a way.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
definitely want to think of it as an investment
Exactly.
in your book's success.
Yeah. So low rates, definitely
Yeah.
watch out.
Big red flag.
What are some other things that should kind of tip us off?
Another big one is lack of a portfolio or references.
Okay.
Like you want to see examples of their previous work.
Oh, that makes
You want to hear from other authors about their experiences.
Yeah.
So if they can't provide that,
Mm-hmm.
that's a bit of a warning sign.
Okay.
And also, like, if their communication is really vague or they're not willing to discuss their editing process in detail,
Yeah.
that can also be a red flag.
Yeah. You want someone who's communicative
Absolutely.
and like upfront about, what their process is and everything.
For sure, because clear communication is so important in any collaboration,
Absolutely.
but especially when it comes to editing your book.
Totally.
Mhm.
Now, the guide mentions networking as like a secret weapon
Yes.
for finding these editors.
It's so valuable.
Okay. Have you seen this work like in real life?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Like connecting with other writers,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's online or in person,
Yeah.
can be such a great way to find editors
Okay.
because, you can get recommendations from people you trust.
Right. Like firsthand experience.
Exactly. In
Yeah.
fact, I know an author who found her editor
Right.
through a Facebook group
Okay.
for historical fiction writers.
Oh, wow.
And she had been struggling to find the right editor.
Yeah.
And then, she gave this recommendation and it turned out to be a perfect match.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, don't underestimate the power of community
Yeah.
and talking to other writers.
So what about those online platforms like
Yeah.
Reedsy or Fiverr or Upwork?
Yeah.
What do you think about those?
I mean, I think they can be great resources.
Okay.
But it's really important to do your research.
Mm.
Read client reviews carefully,
Mm-hmm.
check the editor's credentials,
Right.
and if possible, try to get a sample edit.
Oh, a sample edit.
Yeah, it's basically like a test drive before
Okay.
you commit to the whole project.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Test drive.
Because you're right, you wouldn't buy a car
Yeah.
without taking it for a spin.
Exactly. And it's kind of like the same thing with an editor.
Right.
You want to make sure.
You want to see how they work.
Yeah.
You want to see if their style is a good fit for you.
Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah. I've definitely gotten sample edits from a few different editors
Yeah.
before making a decision.
Yeah. And what was that like?
I mean, it was really helpful to see the different approaches, because some editors are very technical and focused on grammar,
Yeah.
while others are more big picture oriented and really dig into like the emotional core of the story.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is.
Yeah.
And so it really helped me to choose the editor who best understood my vision for the book.
That makes sense. So how do you know?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know if the editor is the right fit for your project?
Well, I think it comes down to asking the right questions.
Okay.
It's like you're interviewing them for a job.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah, you want to find out if they have the skills and the experience to help you achieve your goals for the book.
So what are some of those questions?
Yeah.
Like, what should we be asking these potential editors?
Well, first you want to ask about their experience in your genre.
Okay.
Because an editor who specializes in science fiction is going to have a different set of skills and knowledge than someone who primarily edits romance novels.
Of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so you want to make sure they understand the conventions and the expectations of your genre.
Yeah, like a seasoned fantasy editor.
Right.
Probably isn't the best pick.
Probably.
For like a hard-boiled detective novel.
Yeah, exactly.
What else should we be asking them?
You should also ask about their editing process and what their rates include. Like, are they offering developmental editing, copy editing, proofreading, or a combination of these?
Yeah, could you actually break down those different levels of editing?
Sure.
Because I think a lot of writers get kind of confused about what each type actually involves.
Yeah, I know it can be a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
So developmental editing is really about the big picture elements of your story.
Okay.
So things like plot, character development, pacing, and theme.
Okay. So big picture stuff.
Yeah, it's about making sure your story is structurally sound and emotionally engaging.
Right.
Copy editing is more about polishing the language, the grammar, and the syntax.
So like sentence level stuff.
Yeah, making sure your writing is clear, concise, and error-free.
Okay.
And then proofreading is the last stage of the editing process.
Got it.
And that's really about catching those tiny typos and punctuation errors.
So that's like the very final polish.
Yeah, final polish.
So how do we know which type of editing we need for our manuscript?
Well, it depends on the stage of your writing process and your individual needs.
Okay.
Like if you're still developing your story and you need help with structure or character arcs, then developmental editing is a good place to start.
Okay.
But if you're confident in your story's foundation, but you want to make sure your writing is polished and error-free, then copy editing is probably the way to go. And proofreading is pretty much essential for every manuscript before it goes to print.
Okay, so it's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You wouldn't use a hammer to tighten a screw.
Right. And the guide also mentions like having a formal agreement or a contract with your editor.
Very important.
Why is that so important?
Well, it protects both you and the editor.
Okay.
It clearly outlines the scope of work, the deadlines, payment terms, and any other important details.
So it's like having everything in writing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It prevents misunderstandings. And it ensures that everyone is on the same page.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, I love that this guide actually includes some examples of authors who like found their perfect editor.
Yeah, success stories.
Yeah, it's like...
That's inspiring.
It is inspiring. It gives you hope.
Yeah.
So tell us about some of these success stories.
Okay, so one of the case studies highlights this author named Anna. She writes fantasy, and she found her editor through a Reddit group or indie writers.
Okay.
And they just really clicked creatively. Yeah. And they also worked out a payment plan that fit Anna's budget.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it shows you that there are lots of different ways to find an editor. And to make it work financially.
Yeah, that's great. What about some of the other examples?
Okay. Well, another author named James, he writes nonfiction.
Okay.
And he had a great experience using Readsy.
Okay.
And he really liked that he could filter editors based on genre experience and budget.
That's handy.
Yeah. So it made his search much more targeted.
Okay.
And then he read profiles.
Yeah.
He looked at sample edits, and he ended up finding an editor who was a perfect match for him.
I love these stories. They're so inspiring.
Yeah.
Like it really shows you that it can be done.
It can.
You can find the right editor.
Absolutely.
So once you've found that editor,
how
do you make the most of that collaboration?
Yeah.
What are some tips for like a smooth and productive editing experience?
Okay, well, one of the most important things is to prepare your manuscript before you send it to the editor. Do a thorough self-edit.
Okay, so go through it yourself first.
Yeah. Use tools like Grammarly or the Hemingway editor to catch any basic errors and just tighten up your prose.
Right.
This will allow the editor to focus on the higher level aspects of your work.
That makes sense.
Rather than getting bogged down in basic grammar fixes.
Right. It's like cleaning your house before the cleaning crew comes.
Yes.
So they can focus on
deep cleaning.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just picking up your socks.
So preparation is key.
It is. Clear and open communication is also crucial.
So talk to your editor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Share your goals for the book, your target audience, and any specific concerns you have.
So really lay it all out.
Yeah, because this helps the editor tailor their approach to your vision.
That makes sense.
And also be open to feedback. You hired this editor for their expertise.
Right.
So trust their judgment and be willing to consider their suggestions.
So it's a partnership.
It is a partnership.
Yeah.
You're both working towards the same goal.
Right. Making the book the best it can be.
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yes. If something is unclear or you want further clarification.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you don't understand why they made a certain change.
Exactly. The more open and honest the communication, the more productive the collaboration will be.
Absolutely. Communication is key.
Yes, it is.
So it sounds like having that collaborative mindset is really important.
It is. Yeah. I mean, you're both on the same team.
Right.
You're both working to make this book the best it can be.
Okay, so I think this has been a really great overview of some of the key points from the guide.
Absolutely.
And we're going to dive into some more specific strategies in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned.
All right. So before we get into those strategies,
yeah,
I think it's important to talk about maximizing your investment in editing. Because you are investing in this.
Right.
So how do you get the most bang for your buck?
Yeah, what are some tips for really getting the most out of our editor's feedback?
Well, one of the key things is to actually engage with the feedback.
Okay.
Don't just skim through it and make quick changes.
Right.
Take the time to understand why the editor made those suggestions.
Oh, that's a good point.
What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah.
How does their feedback align with your overall vision for the book?
So it's about learning.
It is about learning.
Yeah,
it's about becoming a stronger writer.
Right, not just fixing like surface level problem.
Exactly. It's about understanding the why behind those mistakes.
Right. And like how to avoid them in the future.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, so it's a growth opportunity.
It is a huge growth opportunity. And even after you've gone through like the major rounds of edits, it's always a good idea to request a final proofread.
Okay. Just
to make sure that you didn't miss any typos.
Right.
Any little errors that might have slipped through the cracks.
So it's like a final quality check.
It is.
Yeah, before the book goes out into the world.
Absolutely.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I kind of want to open this up to our listeners.
Okay.
And, get your perspective on this.
Yeah.
What are your biggest concerns when it comes to finding an editor?
Yeah. Have you had any positive or negative experiences with editors?
Yeah. Let us know in the comments below.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, because I think, sharing those experiences can be really helpful for everyone.
Yeah, because we can all learn from each other.
Right. And we're all in this together.
We are.
Right.
The writing journey.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's a community.
So, okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
And this deep dive has really given us, I think, a good roadmap.
Yeah.
For finding that affordable editing without, sacrificing quality.
Right.
Like we talked about, understanding the different types of editing.
Yeah.
How to identify those red flags, the importance of networking, and how to, make the most of that collaboration.
Sure.
Once you found that editor.
And remember, it's an investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment in your book.
Right.
It's an investment in you as a writer.
It's a partnership.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a partnership that can really elevate your work.
Okay, so to all our listeners out there, go forth and create.
Yes.
Don't
let the search for an editor hold you back from sharing your stories with the world.
So on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
And we'll be back with the next part soon.
All right. Yeah. And even after the major edits are done, it's always a good idea to request a final proofread.
Okay.
Just to make sure no typos or anything slipped through.
Right. So like a final check.
Yeah, that final polish.
Yeah.
To make sure everything is perfect before it goes out into the world.
I like that.
Yeah.
So I think, this has been a really insightful deep dive
Yeah, I think so.
into finding affordable editing.
Absolutely.
You know, we talked about the different types of editing.
Yeah.
We talked about the red flags to watch out for.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about networking and finding editors.
Yes.
And then, you know, how to really make that relationship work.
Right. Communication is key.
Communication is key.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't be afraid to reach out to editors.
Absolutely.
Ask questions.
Yeah.
Get those sample edits.
For sure.
You know, and find that perfect match.
Yeah. Because it's out there.
It is out there.
It is.
Yeah.
You just have to be willing to put in a little bit of effort.
And you know it's an investment.
It is.
In your book. In yourself as a writer.
Yeah. It's worth it.
It is so worth it.
Absolutely.
To go forth and create.
Yes.
Everyone.
Happy writing.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into finding affordable editing without sacrificing quality.
Thanks for listening.
We hope you enjoyed it.
We'll see you next time.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Bye.